Hi, my name is Logan Fennell. I'm going to take a little time to go over what makes a successful presentation. I'll start off by saying that it's extremely common for most people to have a fear of delivering presentations in a professional setting. Everyone fears the word uh, presentation, but it's something that every person needs to be trained to do, and I know me personally have been trained at a young age because they instill it in elementary, middle school, high schools, and into college because it's definitely a skill that can be extremely useful and applicable into the real world, whether it is, you're presenting in front of people as your job. In a study that I read as I was researching successful presentations, there's 3,000 Americans were asked, what are you most afraid of in life? And among 8 different categories, speaking before a group had the largest percentage of 41%. Over the next categories like bugs and insects, deep water, and financial problems, all were sitting at 22%. So I thought that was super interesting. And according to Dr. Mahabrian from UCLA, he breaks down the level of impact of a speaker makes when he or she is presenting. So right now I'm kind of going to go over 3 big factors that come into play as the speaker's impact when he's presenting. So believe it or not, how you look has the largest percentage with 55%, and how you sound is at 38%, and finally what you have to say is 7%. So this goes to show that appearance matters. And in my opinion, you have to dress with some authority so that people can look to you as a speaker and say like, wow, this person really knows what he or she is doing or saying and has some authority behind you, so you're believable and that people can believe that you had something important to say. And we'll get into proper dress code in a little bit because I know that's definitely an important component to go over. So how you sound, which was the 38%, is another way that a speaker can impact an audience. And it's also super important, especially today, because people's attention spans are not as great as they used to be with there's so many distractions out there, all the technological advances that people are subconsciously attached to and seem to gravitate towards like every second of the day. So if you are hearing some monotonous language that will bore you in an instant, like good luck with keeping an audience attention. You often tune out and what is being presented won't be sound informative, even though the material might be informative and something that you might want to take a listen to, but if the way it sounds is not appealing to you, then you're going to tune out. So the speaker needs to sound intriguing. If he or she is presenting a pitch where you need to win an audience over, you better put on your best convincing voice so you can really audience in, really appeal to their emotions and what they might want to hear. And being animated and showing charisma, using your hands, walking around the room but not being too fidgety, and showing this charisma that makes you also a better presenter. And an audience will be more inclined to show an interest in whatever material is being presented, even if it's maybe the dullest thing. As long as you make it sound like it is the greatest thing, then it really can change an audience perspective on whatever is being presented. So in other words, how will you expect people to jump on board with something that you're presenting if you don't sound like you're interested or on board with the subject you may be covering? So even if the topic doesn't initially tailor to an audience, you can make it sound appealing just by the way you are saying it and presenting the information. So in addition, the last component that we went over for speaker impact is what you have to say in the presentation, which is super interesting because you do all that research to present, and 7% is actually impacted by the presenter. So obviously you have to do your research. Some people feel they can BS their way through a presentation, and we've all seen those people. They've all gone through it. But most of the time we can pick out if the presenter actually took the time to prepare, and that means, researching and outlining and having a practice run through or so. I know for me personally, one of my biggest fears is not preparing for a presentation because undoubtedly I will freeze and I'm not the greatest person at improvising. So I like when I know exactly what I'm going to say, when I'm going to say it, and, you know, for that. So it's important that for me personally, I find an angle that will best get the audience's attention and keep them interested. So this can be done by a form of storytelling, which is probably the easiest way to make a presentation, more appealing to people's emotions, to make a lasting impact. And, isn't that what your goal is after all in a presentation? Making an impact on the information that you're covering, right? So we're going to go a little into detail about what to wear. I know we kind of touched up on it earlier, but in terms of wardrobe for your presentation day, think of it as that you're going to an interview. Wear something that's appropriate, conservative, and businesslike. If it's a questionable outfit, meaning you have to think twice about if it's fit for the presentation, then it's probably not a good idea. For women, wearing a skirt or dress is encouraged, but it's not always required. If not slacks, probably your best bet is like a nice conservative top and maybe throw in a blazer over that. And keep the colors solid, avoiding too much pattern or any bright neon colors that will draw too much attention to your outfit and not actually you and you as the presenter. For men, suits are often preferred, but it's not mandatory. A nice pair of slacks with a solid color button-down shirt, anywhere from a white top, a blue to a beige, any sort of light color that will complement the suit well and also might add a little extra flair with a tie. I love when guys dress up to the nines. It's always a classy way to go for a presentation. As far as outlining your actual presentation, so when you first get into going into your presentation, we're coming in here completely blind. We have no idea what's coming. So you need to know that we have no knowledge going into this, so you have to kind of set the scene for us. So you may have done all your research and have all the information in front of you, but you need to know how to properly structure the presentation. And it's important that your presentation can flow. You need to set the scene and make sure you're answering all the questions like how, what, why about your topic. I know that's every time I do a presentation, I make sure I answer all of those questions. So I can say, why would the audience care? Because I answered these things. One of the first things you want to do when you're presenting is to also just set objectives. I mean, set out to the audience what exactly you'll be talking about, what your objective for the presentation is all about. So people have like a good understanding. So they're not just taking in this information and wondering why or where it fits, how it applies, and so on. Other key tips I just want to hit on to keep in mind is eye contact is crucial. It's totally a huge part of presenting. The presentation is obviously catered to the audience, so it's crucial to engage the audience and give them some eye contact so they feel like they're a part of the presentation, like they have some kind of connection with you. That doesn't mean you have to have a staring contest with everybody in the room, and it's even worse to scan the up and next. That's just distracting. So I think it's really important, and what I've always been taught in public speaking classes is to lock eyes with someone for maybe 2 seconds and then move around the room, like just keeping until you kind of hit mostly everybody in the room. Obviously, with a huge lecture room, that's not going to happen, but getting the general sense, like getting around the room, but making sure you kind of made a connection with someone to engage them a little bit more. And another tip I also find really valuable is to coordinate some audience interaction. Like I mentioned before, people's poor attention spans today are pretty rampant, so the best way to make sure that your audience is paying attention is to engage them, involve them in the presentation, whether it's asking for their feedback or, getting a group game that they can all participate in, have them share an anecdote that's kind of conducive or relevant to your topic at hand. So I hope those little tips and components of successful presentation will help you through presentations in your life. Thanks.